Walter Devereux started the first hydroelectric power plant, and used his knowledge and abilities to exploit the coal deposits of Jerome Park. After moving to Glenwood Springs with his wife and 3 sons, he established the Glenwood Light and Water Company to supply services to the community. Walter built a health spa and created the first hot springs public swimming pool, which was always at 85 degrees year-round, after noticing that the Glenwood hot springs were aiding the coal workers with their ailments. This 500-foot swimming pool was given the name Natatorium, and made available to the public in 1888. This pool attracted a lot of visitors, necessitating the need for more lodging. This inspired Mr. Devereux to construct the 5-star resort hotel of his dreams, a haven for affluent people. The Hotel Colorado's position was close to the hot springs, and it also benefited from the refreshing mountain breezes. 1893 saw the debut of the Hotel Colorado, which had 190 opulent guest rooms. The hotel had 2 bell towers, each housing a high-end luxurious suite where the wealthiest of the rich stayed, including the unsinkable Molly Brown, who was a regular guest there. The hotel was rented out to the military from 1943 to 1946, so that it could serve as a hospital for nearly 6,000 injured troops. The hotel is still in operation today. A female figure in Victorian clothing has been observed in the dining room while wearing perfume. Because of the scent of her distinct perfume, people can detect her presence even when she is invisible. She enjoys observing men as they sleep in her favorite hotel rooms and suites. They see her and smell her scent when they awaken. The young woman's ghost is still reliving her murder, and guests have reported hearing her screams in the hotel's old room, on the floor where she died. Her room became a storage room and is no longer accessible to the public, as a result of all the paranormal activity inside. One employee who worked in the office stayed in room 306, and claimed that she woke up in the middle of the night. She attempted to get out of bed but was unable to move. She claimed that she felt a presence holding her and that she could feel a pressure holding her down. The 3rd, 4th, and 5th floors appear to have attracted former spirit visitors, as well as potentially former military patients, as activity there is at its peak. 2 popular areas are rooms 321 and 351, all by itself. The elevator ascends and descends. Nothing has been found to be broken after inspection. These intrigued spirit visitors enjoy playing with modern-day lights, and will frequently turn them on and off in the middle of the night, upsetting the sleeping guests. Both workers and visitors have reported seeing ghostly figures in the hallways and rooms. Things also seem to be moving around the area, and strange noises have been heard by former hotel guests who stayed in the more opulent suites, especially in 651 and 652. Also, their presence is made in the 2 bell tower suites. The suite that bears Molly Brown's name in the bell tower is the busiest. Room 551 is a favorite haunt of a man phantom, who has been spotted there as well as outside in the corridor. In this space, people have reported the usual assortment of paranormal occurrences. The sounds of invisible dishes being moved and stacked, as well as the peculiar behavior of pots and pans in the kitchen, all point to the possibility of former employees, still working in the kitchen and dining area of the hotel in spirit form. Former workers who supplied room service are now present in spirit. Present-day visitors continue to experience phantom knocks on their doors, and detect unidentified odors of possibly prepared food coming from invisible bellhops, attempting to provide room service. Walter Devereux, the past owner, is easily recognized by his distinctive aroma of cigar smoke. This implies that he occasionally appears to the astonished staff members while emitting the aroma of cigar smoke, tying the aroma to Walter Devereux. Although smoking is not permitted inside for the living guests, his cigar smoke may be seen in the lobby. Some people in the lobby can sense his hidden presence. Since there is evidence of Walter's cigar smoke in the basement, and locked doors magically opening, it is likely that he still visits his former office, which was in the basement. When the wallpaper in room 551 needed to be redone in 1982, rolls of wallpaper were applied. No occupants could enter because the door was tightly locked. The following morning, the employees discovered all of the wallpaper had been meticulously removed from the walls, and was neatly folded up on the floor. This happened again, after several additional tries. In 1848, John Moet was born in Scotland, and immigrated to America in 1873 at the age of 25, settling in Denver, Colorado. John worked hard in the lumber industry. He soon got married and settled down with a family. Both his business and his family were very important to him. By 1890, John not only was the owner of the Denver-based John Moet Lumber Company, but also was a contractor. John used his own sawed lumber from his mills to build over 200 buildings in Denver, turning it from a rough mining town into a respectable city with fine homes and buildings. John constructed his mansion as a testament to his success. He used the best wood available, including hand-carved cherry, oak, poplar, sycamore, maple, and walnut, may be found throughout the mansion's chambers. Each area had a unique type of wood that John himself had selected. As a finishing touch, the dining room included carved rosettes that represented the various types of tree wood used in its various rooms. John Moet passed away in San Diego in 1915, and the Moet family subsequently relocated. Years later, Hiram Fowler and his family purchased the mansion. Fowler was renowned for his generosity for the young residents in the area. Children enjoyed playing with the exquisite doll playhouse that belonged to the Fowler daughter in the ballroom, which served as their daily playtime. The mansion was owned by several members of the Fowler family up until 1990, when they attempted to convert it into a commercial building in order to generate revenue for the home. For a while the mansion housed a business school. Then, a very successful commercial endeavor was launched to provide houses for the general public. Walter and Julie Keller purchased it and saved it from destruction. Over the course of 3 years, the Kellers meticulously and lovingly pieced the house back together as a single-family home. They combined the basement units into one sizable apartment and made the decision to reside there since they believed the neighborhood was improving. The Kellers furnished the communal areas of the mansion with antique furniture after stabilizing and restoring it, and also furnished the various guest rooms with antique beds, bathtubs, showers, and dressers. Outside, they also erected statues and fountains. The Kellers also established a stage theater in their ballroom, which received enthusiastic support from the Denver region. The Kellers discovered that they enjoyed writing plays as much as they enjoyed appearing in them, even more so than managing a bed and breakfast. The Kellers put the bed and breakfast up for sale in April 2008, and wanting to purchase a larger location for their theater group. However, guests are still welcome to stay there. With her parents' approval, 16-year-old Kara Connaught, an independent ceramic artist, dropped out of high school and relocated from the luxury of her suburban Denver home, to get her own small apartment in 1970. She settled inside the dilapidated mansion. Kara informed her family that she intended to return to school, and complete her education after returning home to celebrate her 17th birthday. She said she had a job lined up and would be leaving her rented place in 4 days. She also stated that she intended to attend art school after high school. Kara's last spoke to her parents was the day following her Sunday birthday celebration. A man stormed into Kara's room while she was inside it early that Monday evening. He may have been one of her fellow tenants, who knew she was temporarily alone and was getting ready to move out, and despite her attempts to protect herself with a kitchen knife, he strangled her to death, and stuffed her body beneath her bed. Around 9 o'clock in the evening, Kara was visited by Mary Ann Weaver, a young mother who attended Arapahoe Community College while residing with her parents in Lakewood. The murderer was present when Mary Ann entered the crime scene. Mary Ann was executed by being shot in the head. This case is still ongoing, and the killer has never been found. There are rumors that the ghosts of Mary Ann Weaver and Kara Connaught still wander the mansion. A young female apparition has been spotted by the staff and former guests, in the Valentine room, as well as on the main staircase, also in the corridor that passes past their room. These two ghosts have also let their presence be known even though they are not seen. In 1993, Walter Keller was cutting tile for a shower while kneeling down in the passageway between the Honeymoon and Valentine suites, when he had a frightening experience. The Denver Post interviewed Walter and he related his experience to them. Walter sensed an unseen presence watching him as he worked. Walter swung around to look, but no one was there, but he felt an icy wind gust that made the hairs stand up on the back of his neck. There was no logical basis for this gust of frozen wind. Another spirit is believed to be a male servant of some position, or a member of the Moet or Fowler family. It is believed it is most likely a business school instructor who is still in the classroom. This entity has made himself known, and can be heard speaking in a number of the mansion's rooms. Another is thought to probably be the previous owner of the house, or perhaps a previous business school administrator. He has been seen smoking his pipe in the communal areas on the first level in front of the living. The scent of tobacco can be detectable, even when he attempts to remain invisible. The smell of tobacco can occasionally be noticed. Margaret Brown was raised in a family of 6. Upon adulthood she lived with her brother in Leadville after relocating there, and she found work at a goods store, while holding aspirations of finding love with a wealthy man who would support her family. She met the love of her life, James Brown known as JJ, at a church picnic. She abandoned her dream and got married in 1886. They relocated into a 2-room log cabin closer to JJ's job at the lead mine. She continued her education by reading and studying. Molly hired tutors to help. By 1889, Molly and JJ had 2 children and were back in Leadville, where they resided in a nice home. JJ was making good money managing the numerous mining operations of the Ibex Mining Company. But he decided to strike out on his own. He bought the Little Johnny mine because it was found that this mine contained a sizable gold vein. The Little Johnny was transporting 135 tons of gold every day by October of 1893. The mining sector in Leadville was reignited by this gold discovery. The Brown family relocated to Denver, and acquired a grand Victorian mansion for $30,000 in 1889. In Leadville and Denver, Molly and JJ performed numerous acts of kindness and generosity by donating their money to various causes. Serving those who were less fortunate was something she would do for the rest of her life. They remained friends despite the fact that her marriage ended in 1909. She became interested in the Red Cross. She also became involved in social causes including raising money for a juvenile justice system, traveled to France during World War I, and assisted the locals there. Before learning from Denver that her oldest grandchild, Lawrence Palmer Brown Jr. was critically ill, Brown spent the first several months of 1912 with her daughter in Paris. Upon hearing of his illness, she quickly purchased a ticket on the RMS Titanic, the next ship leaving for New York. On April 15, 1912, the Titanic sank after colliding with an iceberg at about 11:40 p.m. Brown assisted others in getting into the lifeboats, but was ultimately convinced to leave the ship in lifeboat number 6. Because she assisted in the ship's evacuation, by rowing in her lifeboat, and urged the lifeboat to go back and save more passengers, Brown was later dubbed the unsinkable Molly Brown by journalists. Molly began to spend less and less time in Denver after her marriage ended, and she made the decision to rent out their home to different families for many years. During the Great Depression, however, she was compelled to convert the home into a boarding house. Brown worked as an actor in her later years. On October 26, 1932, she passed away peacefully in the Barbizon Hotel in New York City. A brain tumor was discovered during a later autopsy. She and JJ were both laid to rest in Westbury, New York's Holyrood Cemetery. A man named Art Leisenring purchased the home in 1958, and operated a gentleman's boarding house there for 2 years. Later he leased it to the city of Denver, who converted it into a residence for troubled girls. This house was set for demolition by 1970. Leisenring established the historic Denver organization, and raised funds for the preservation of Molly Brown's home through it. The home was painstakingly brought back to its former glory and opened as a museum. The ghosts of Molly Brown and her husband James John are still at the house, going about their daily lives and doing the things they enjoyed doing while they were alive. The scent of pipe and cigar smoke from JJ smoking again can be smelled, despite the fact that smoking is not permitted in the museum or around visitors. The living have witnessed Molly Brown's apparition moving around corners and have felt cold spots in her chamber. The living have been allowed to snap pictures of this female phantom, who prefers to sit at the dining room table and is clothed in Victorian clothing. This entity enjoys moving the seats around the same table. Catherine Ellen, a daughter of Molly, passed away at a young age. In her room, the window coverings automatically lift and drop. Additionally, a male servant with a foul temper has been observed in the mirror, standing near the first-floor stairs. And Joanna, the mother of Molly, stayed in Catherine Ellen's previous bedroom. In the window of the room, Joanna's ghostly apparition has been observed. When the Boulder Municipal Council desired to create a first-rate hotel, to accommodate business travelers and investors interested in fostering city growth, the Boulderado Hotel was constructed in 1905. Hotel Boulderado was owned by the newly founded corporation, until 1939. After hosting a ball on December 31, 1908, the Hotel Boulderado officially opened for business on January 1, 1909. Everything went smoothly, and guests filled up the hotel. Within 10 years, World War I's economic effects on the hotel were felt. The hotel was back on its feet by the 1920s, enjoying 10 years of prosperity before the Great Depression reduced the amount of visitors with the means to stay there. Louis Armstrong, Helen Keller, Ethel Barrymore, and Douglas Fairbanks were just a few of the famous visitors. However, Hotel Boulderado managed to survive the 1930s and World War II by lowering their prices, and attracting both average and above-average guests. They began to rent individual rooms on a weekly or monthly basis. The Hotel Boulderado was upgraded and renovated after the war at the request of the new owners, who desired a more contemporary hotel. A significant snowstorm in 1959 caused some of the stained glass canopy ceiling to break. Red, white and blue plexiglass was installed in lieu of the removed ceiling. Boulder was restoring its old downtown buildings, and erecting its dazzling Pearl Street Mall in 1976. Because it lacked safety elements like sprinklers, the city council intended to demolish the Hotel Boulderado. The hotel was purchased by 4 friends, who opposed the plans of the city government to clear the land for a new building. The required sprinklers were paid for and put in place all across the property. The great old hotel underwent a significant restoration in 1980, under a new owner named Frank Day, who started by converting the cafe back into a formal dining space, called Winston's Seafood Restaurant. There have been reports of ghosts still residing in the original rooms, which were in the earlier section of the hotel, especially rooms 302 and 304, as well as in the halls on the same floor. The original section's top level appears to be bustling with activity as well. 3 people committed suicide there, and another attempted suicide by shooting himself on the fire escape. In their room, a second person also attempted to kill himself by shooting himself also. In 1924, a resident guest committed suicide by using chloroform while his wife was bathing. Because there wasn't enough of it left to kill her, his wife tried to as well but was unsuccessful. The hotel personnel located her and brought her to the hospital, where she received treatment in the nearby insane asylum. Also over the years, there were a number of deaths at the hotel from natural causes. Because he perceived something in spirit form on the other side of the door, one Native American medicine man refused to enter one of the rooms. Guests have been describing indistinct white human-shaped apparitions to employees for years. Visitors claim they have heard ghostly whispers, coming from what seems as nowhere. Also, a white-dressed female apparition has been spotted. Her transparent body has recently been seen wandering through the top-floor hallways of the hotel, where the most expensive suites were situated due to the view. Many have also reported that TVs and lights switch on and off on their own. Congress granted the territory of Colorado's request for $40,000 to build a penitentiary in the territory in 1867. Inmates were told to return to the prison at a set hour or risk being locked out, therefore the 3-story building was well known for having no walls. The Colorado Territorial Penitentiary was inaugurated on January 13, 1871. Nearly a century later, the women's prison was constructed just around the corner. In Cannon City, Colorado, off of Main and First Streets, it was constructed on a 25-acre site. The three-story structure housed 50 cells in addition to offices, a dining area, and a kitchen. Early 1870s newspaper reports detailed severe security lapses at the jail, including fugitive inmates and wild boars that strayed onto the grounds. According to numerous reports, prisoners frequently left the property at night to loot nearby chicken coops before returning to their cells the next morning. Once more, the populace demanded a more secure jail, so to placate them, work to secure the facility started. In 1875, a substantial stone wall that was 20 feet high and 4 feet thick was built. The requirement for extra space to accommodate more inmates increased as Colorado grew. A second cell building was built in 1881, and a third was built 8 years later in 1899. There was plenty of labor at the prison at the time, and there was even a prison band that performed monthly. On the property was also constructed a stone quarry, a tailor shop, and manufacturing positions requiring the shaping of sizable sandstone blocks. Then in 1935 they built the former women's jail and is now the location of the Museum of Colorado Prisons, but it has long been the site of some paranormal phenomena, involving both male inmates from the territorial prison next door, as well as past female inmates. Although no prisoners have been housed at the women's prison for 50 years, their ghostly apparitions and voices continue to haunt the facility. For all visitors to see, the museum has housed historical objects including a noose and a former gas chamber. A frequent entity is rumored to have been one of the prisoners who was hanged with the noose that is on exhibit in the museum. Visitors to the exhibit can hear him talk, going by the moniker Shorty. Another called Walter has also spoken to visitors, and he even admitted to one employee that he had killed 3 children. Upon further investigation, it was discovered that Walter was a prisoner at the territorial prison, who had been given a death by gas chamber verdict for the murder of a 6-year-old. There are also physical manifestations of the museum's ghosts. Visitors claim that they have experienced hair pulling, pushing, and even grabbing. There have been incidents where sealed rooms' motion detectors went off. The kitchen of the women's prison is frequently visited by an apparition of a woman, and chairs are frequently dragged upstairs. One of the hauntings is very unsettling. An employee saw a man wearing a red shirt and tan jeans when she was outside. Later, she questioned a coworker who was gazing up at a tree about what he was doing. He claimed to have observed a man standing up in the tree's limbs wearing a red shirt and tan slacks. Janitorial staff members often report muddy footprints and shoe marks. These hauntings are not brand new. When the women's prison was still in operation, the late Warden Wayne Patterson wrote in his book Keeper of the Keys, that he used to have to soothe prisoners who were upset about a woman wailing all night in cell 18. The issue was that when the complaints were made, cell 18 was empty. Eliza Martin, one of John and Nancy Martin's 5 children, began her life as Pearl DeVere, the founder of Old Homestead Brothel. She relocated to Denver, Colorado in the 1870s, where she immediately entered the field as Mrs. Martin. Her family believed she was employed by a respectable hat manufacturer. She relocated to Colorado's El Paso County in 1887. She wed a man named Albert Young that same year, but the two did not live together. Maybe he believed she would leave her job. It is thought that she might have given birth to his child or one that resulted from her area of work. She changed her hair color to red, and started dressing nicely and wearing jewelry. She relocated to Cripple Creek in 1893, took the name Pearl DeVere, and opened her own parlor house. In order to run her business, DeVere had bought a modest frame house on Myers Avenue. She attempted marriage once more and wed wealthy Miller C.B. Flynn in 1895, who accepted what she did for a living. A catastrophe ended their marriage after only 1 year. Flynn got a job as a smelter in Monterrey, Mexico, following the terrible fire of 1896, that burned much of downtown Cripple Creek, including Flynn's mill and Pearl's brothel. Pearl didn't accompany him to Mexico. Instead, Pearl built the old homestead with the help of 3 other women. This brick structure was the ideal setting for the upscale parlor house, for affluent gentlemen that would be guests inside. Pearl made a lot of friends in Cripple Creek by being kind to widows and others in need. Her sister traveled from Chicago to Cripple Creek to pick up her body when she passed away. She became angered upon learning Pearl's line of work, and left to return to Chicago, leaving Pearl's body in Cripple Creek without any funds to be buried. The town's residents were outraged by Pearl's sister's actions, but the money they donated wasn't quite enough to bury her. It was proposed that her gown, which cost $800, be auctioned to cover the shortfall. Thankfully, the Denver man who purchased her gown asked that she be buried in it, and gave a $1,000 donation to cover the expenses. In the known history of Cripple Creek, she is said to have had the most extravagant burial procession ever. Hazel Vernon purchased the old homestead at auction when Pearl passed away in 1899. In 1917, the old homestead was converted to a boarding house. It eventually changed into a private home and stayed that way for many years. The proprietors found a lot of unique objects in the house. In 1957, they wanted to share them with both tourists and locals. The house was converted into the Old Homestead Brothel Museum in June 1958. The Old Homestead is currently held by a nonprofit foundation. There has been many reports of hauntings. Pearl is believed to be overjoyed that she and her work of love were remembered and valued. She often is in attendance during the tours, listening to the tour guides explain the presentation's information. The tour guides often sense something surrounding them. Several people have claimed that the old homestead is still inhabited by the ghosts of 3 females. People have experienced both physical contact and movement out of the corner of their eyes. There were multiple reports from workers who claimed that the former girls of the house had appeared and were observing them while they worked during recent construction. The workers were able to determine who the spirits were, proof the girls must have appeared to them. The Palace Hotel was initially designed to be the local pharmacy. Soon the stagecoaches started stopping at Cripple Creek. As a result of the discovery of gold there in 1890, it was enlarged to become a hotel in 1892. The 1896 fire destroyed the original hotel structure, which was built out of wood, but this time brick was used to rebuild it. All of the building tops are illuminated at night, highlighting the exquisite brickwork. When Dr. Chambers purchased the hotel in 1900, his wife Kitty Chambers took care of their guests, while he managed the pharmacy. Cripple Creek was regarded as a ghost town from the 1970s to the 1980s, because there were only a few hundred residents there. After voters in Colorado approved a small-scale gaming for Cripple Creek in 1991, the town was able to wisely spruce up and restore its historic structures, open new businesses in its former storefronts, and establish a historical society that has assisted in the preservation of old structures. The Palace ended its lengthy career as a hotel in 2003, after being converted to a casino and sold to its rival across the street. An older woman who still regarded herself as an owner is described as Mrs. Kitty's ghost. She took possession of 2 of the rooms. She is said to have appeared in room 3, and was accused of concealing all the keys to room 9. This entity did her part to assist the staff, and added her own touches. Staff would discover lit candles in various hotel locations, such as the dining room, but they were unable to identify the individual who was adding these decorations, until they spotted something moving throughout the structure, while carrying a candle and wearing a nightgown. The candles continued to burn even after the dining area was converted into a casino. Candle placement was one of her responsibilities while she was still living. Staff members gave Mrs. Chambers credit for lowering the covers for the hotel's visitors. In this building, the occupants have a sense of being watched. Over the years, some people have claimed to have been lightly nudged on the central staircase. A woman has been observed gazing out of the end window on the 2nd floor for many years, including up to the present. She is probably wondering when the living will return to her hotel as she watches the bustle on the street. Although it is assumed to be Kitty, it could also be another entity. Another spirit is believed to be Mary Hedges, who managed the hotel from 1916 to 1918. She has been seen often also. A spirit of a man also wanders around the hotel in a solid shape that is eerily lifelike. Before he abruptly vanishes into thin air, witnesses were unaware that he was a spirit. Despite the fact that it is unknown who this individual is, some people think it is Dr. Chambers. So what do you think of Haunted Colorado? Let us know in the comments below. And as always, please like and subscribe.